You like movies about gladiators?
Those men wanted to have sex with me.
Great Scott!
Nice beaver.
He's a Cinderella boy.
Ramble is a pussy. Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, my name's Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And welcome to Retro Ramble episode 0. Today, the plan is to give you insight into who we are, where we come from, and why we've decided to do this podcast.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
Why are we doing this? Why do we decide to do this podcast?
That is a very good question, Charlie. It all stems back to the fact that as we are brothers, I think that's we need to point that out to our audience. That,
DNA results do confirm.
Yeah, we don't just happen to sound the same and have, the exact same surname. But we live apart, though we have lived together.
On at least two occasions.
At least two occasions.
Yeah,
and I think that's, obviously we're very close brothers, and as a result, we catch up regularly. So we have a weekly call. Stemming back, I was living in London for several years, and you still reside in Paris.
That is correct.
So we
c'est vrai.
Well, I don't speak Spanish. Okay. So we would catch up weekly. We would talk about what we've been up to, check in on our respective families. But the conversation would always steer towards what we were watching, what we were playing on the PlayStation, what we'd seen at the cinema. And I would say a good portion of that was focused to purely that sort of entertainment side. And it was even my wife pointed out and said, all you seem to do is just talk about films with Charlie.
Quote bad impressions and quote films to each other.
And just talk in silly voices. And it got me thinking, and we're going to touch on our sort of backgrounds in a bit, but we're both huge film fans, and I thought, well, why not start recording these conversations and sort of trying to put them into some sort of crazy structure? Why don't we talk about those films that we grew up with, that we love, and that bring us so much joy?
The details of my life are quite inconsequential.
So, in terms of background, say our dad was quite into his films. We had a large VHS collection to rifle through from a very young age. We come from the northeast of England, and there was many a rainy afternoon where there's not much else to do but put on a video. So, I think that probably governed our introduction to film, was through some of the films he was into.
Yeah, I think Dad's taste in films is been very important into steering the films that you and I grew up with. We grew up watching some great comedies like The Griswolds and
Trading
Places, things like that. So we've always grown up with that sort of sense of fun, grown up with stuff like Monty Python.
The knights who say "Ni" demand a sacrifice.
But Dad, whilst he is very much into his real variety of genres, and from blockbusters to he's into a lot of art house stuff. I think that's the important thing, that Dad wasn't snobbish about films. He wasn't like, oh, you have to watch this because it's blah blah blah. And whilst you and I we're not all about the junk food. We do like intelligent, arty foreign films, but I think we get the most entertaining conversations is talking about the blockbusters.
Yeah, the hilariously good or bad titles.
Or so bad they're good.
Yeah, exactly. And I mentioned Dad's collection because I think that was our introduction to film. We kind of picked our own tastes were kind of decided by the films that we had to choose from. So there were some all-time classics. I remember watching things like Where Eagles Dare.
That just came to my mind as well.
I don't know why. I think it was...
It's a great boys' adventure film, and it was made before the age of the blockbuster. If you think the blockbuster sort of started with Jaws and Star Wars, whereas Where Eagles Dare I think was maybe early 70s, maybe.
So yeah, I mean, anyway, as you can tell, we are children. We're both children of the 80s. We grew up in the age of VHS, where you were either buying films on VHS cassette or you were recording them off the telly,
or renting them from the local paper shop where they had one copy of each film, and they were probably it's worth pointing out that Charlie and I grew up in a small country town in northeast England.
Shopping's local.
So you didn't have a local Blockbuster. The nearest Blockbuster type video store was 10, 15 miles away. So growing up, we had to deal with films recorded off telly with all the commercial breaks, but also having to fight over what was available in the local paper shop where there was one copy of each film, and they were about 6 months behind.
At least 6 months.
At least 6 months.
This was also the reason I say at least 6 months, it was a very different time, as hopefully most of you will remember, those who are listening to this, that films would come out in America and then they would come out here probably sometimes 2 years, but maybe a year later. And it was only up until a few years ago that window got down to 6 months. And obviously for the last, 10 years or so, it's been pretty much global releases, or is it still even more recent than that, global releases?
Yeah, it's mainly down to piracy, because piracy's gotten so much easier for people. But yeah, you generally, on all blockbusters, they are released globally within the space of a week. It's a real rarity to get anything longer than that, but I remember, for example, Dad bringing back a copy of Tim Burton's Batman on American VHS, which is different to the UK version, and sadly it didn't work on our video player, but I think Batman was still in the cinema in the UK at that time.
And that was the time when films stayed out much longer at the cinema.
Yeah, I mean, the whole window, we could spend hours talking about how the way we consume films, the whole model has changed, even in the past few years with Netflix, with streaming. But yeah, it was a whole different ballpark when we were kids.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
When it comes to defining, our love of film, would you say that there was something in films, there was something about maybe it was the glitz of Hollywood, it was seeing the scenarios that were being portrayed, but I think we both have quite vivid imaginations, and that's why we attached ourselves to films and movies in general.
Yeah, I mean, it ties into, growing up in a small little rural village that, the whole thing of Hollywood, of blockbusters, is that escapism. And we were lucky enough to grow up where there were some great entertaining blockbusters that came out, and it was very much a social thing. We had lots of friends and we would all spend time together.
Yeah, because it wasn't just us. It would be us with all the other, there was like a few other brother couples in the local town, younger and older, and we'd get together. Have you seen this? And we watched all the classics together. The Indiana Jones, the Star Wars, Predator, Commando, all of these films, Terminator, they were all introduced to us on VHS, probably without our parents' knowledge. I mean, what do kids watch today, George? Well, I mean, obviously there's stuff like Deadpool, but which 18 films do you think that's still going on? They're probably not.
I mean, I suppose...
Because we used to crowd around a TV, somebody had to get the VHS, whereas now they just send a link to each other.
Well,
and it's a pretty 10-minute...
There's no longer my mate Mark's got a copy of, the young cut copy of Predator, or,
young cut version.
Got a pirate copy, where it hasn't got any commercial breaks. Such and such has got, is recorded off Sky.
Yeah.
I remember Sky was like a magical thing that only a few people had access to.
Or your neighbours, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but our neighbours, the Glendennings next door, would ring and say, "We're just about to put Empire Strikes Back on, do you want to come over?"
Yeah.
And there would be times like that. It'd be, you were scheduled in, it was like, we're gonna do this, it's gonna be an event, and we didn't see any of these films at the cinema.
Yeah, I remember some birthday parties were literally based around getting a video from the video shop. Oh, we've got Living Daylights.
Yeah,
it's the Bond we couldn't see at the cinema.
Yeah, we're too young.
Oh no, sorry, that was License to Kill.
License to Kill, yeah.
It was 15.
Yeah, the Die Hard Bond film.
Yeah.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
So yeah, I mean, to summarize, we love film. We spend a lot of our time. Obviously, we were outdoors playing. We were playing games. We were getting fresh air. We were healthy boys.
Setting fire to stuff.
Yeah, making dens, getting dirty.
Controlled fires.
Controlled fires. We were typical. But as products of the 80s themselves, as a result, that's kind of our back catalogue. This became our influences, and we still love film today, but with so many things being repeated, regurgitated, it's why we decided to take, I suppose, a retro look at things, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's quite clear that there is a real appetite for nostalgia at this current current stage over the past couple of years, and that's massively been reflected in films, TV across the board. That it's almost like they don't make them like they used to. I mean,
that could be like the tagline for like all of the films that are coming out at the moment. They don't make them like they used to, so we're gonna make them like they used to.
Well, if you look at some of the more recent releases, whilst franchises, it's simple to do, churn out a sequel because you've got that brand recognition. If you look at stuff like Star Wars: The Force Awakens, a lot of people were criticizing that. It's a good film, but people were criticizing that because it was too much of a retread of Star Wars: A New Hope. Jurassic World was a sequel / reboot. It was touching on going back to the first Jurassic Park and, almost like what they call retcon, where you're sort of erasing, the other sequels that have come out. And, things like Stranger Things, like TV shows where, wearing their influences on their sleeves, to those classic Steven Spielberg, Stephen King, the Goonies type films. So there's a real appetite for that. And as a result, other media, such as podcasts, and we realise, there's loads of film podcasts out there, but I think for you and me, it's fun. And we both listen to a lot of film podcasts and entertaining podcasts.
Yeah, because while we were having these conversations on the phone, just as we would descend into talking about something funny we'd watched or seen or read online, in the last few years we've been referring each other to a number of, like funny podcasts. So what would you say are our main influences that got us to this point where we decided to do a podcast?
Going back, when I first started downloading, air quotes, the podcasts, I think the first film podcast I listened to was what still is the biggest. It was Kermode and Mayo, the Five Live film show. But in that past 5-10 years, you've had the Empire podcast has come out, and that's something that you and I both listen to regularly, religiously. Adam and Joe is a favourite, I think, both of ours.
That was unfortunately short. It was short but sweet.
Yeah, I think we jumped on that. We discovered that a bit too late, but it's great that Adam Buxton is still churning out stuff, and I'd say he's a massive influence on the way that you'll see, in our podcast. We're
fast and loose.
Yeah, but I think there will be influences taken from those types of film podcasts.
How this got made? No, how did it get made?
How did this get made? We're taking. We're not afraid to say we're taking influences from this podcast. So if you enjoy this podcast, hopefully you'll enjoy this podcast. It's a podcast from film fans for film fans.
I wouldn't commit just yet. You've got some real gigs coming up. Real gigs.
So in terms of why do we think that we've got the chops to do this, George?
Well, I think it's fair to say, and we will go on to remind you, that we are not film professionals. We don't work in the film industry, though I did flirt with the film industry as a youth.
Which we will get onto at some point.
A gentleman never tells the full details.
George isn't particularly proud of the film title that he worked on for nefarious reasons.
Yes, yeah. Once I reveal the film title, it will get very embarrassing. However, that's not to say that we've had some dealings with the film industry, and I'm not just talking about working in a blockbuster. In my job, I'm not going to go into detail, but I work in advertising, and a key number of my clients are for big film releases. So I've had the good fortune of of working and pitching to some major film studios. I've had some of my work approved by actual directors, one including none other than Michael Bay himself.
Check out that.
That's a name drop for you. Didn't get to meet him, bless him. Doing Partridge there.
Yeah, he's gone into Partridge,
yeah. I've also, on as a sort of perk for my job, I've attended some advanced screenings, some premieres, and I've got a little bit of a exclusive access that the average Joe wouldn't have. I'm not saying that's complete access that some film websites have, but I'd say a little more than the average Joe.
Yeah, and for my part, I mean, my background is mainly in digital marketing, which is why I'm the geek in charge of our blog and our kind of social media activity. But George is just as capable in that respect as well. But I've done a number of projects and client work with the likes of Studio Canal and other broadcasters. But the fact is that George and I have been living, eating, and breathing film since before we were teenagers.
Far too young.
Yeah, far too young. And we've bought everything into it. We've read books about films that haven't come out yet. We've bought soundtracks. We are completely
props.
Yeah, props. Oh my god, the Batman mask. That Batman mask you had. But yeah, I guess what we're trying to put across is that the reason why we decided to do this podcast is not only do we love film, not only have we spent the last 20, 30 years consuming more film than most, but we have an opinion. We have our own opinions.
They may not be the right opinions.
Yeah, but we enjoy talking about films, and we enjoy having a banter about films. We enjoy reminiscing. It's nostalgia at its best, and I think considering that seems to be a trend that is around, that it is a good time to do a podcast like this.
To exploit it.
Yeah, we're exploiting the... you haven't seen the South Park have been doing this whole member berries.
No.
It's like the current season. I don't want to date this too much, but yeah, they're having a go at J.J. Abrams saying, member TIE Fighters and member Chewbacca. And it's exactly this thing, that nostalgia is the go-to at the moment.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
So yeah, I think in terms of what people have to look forward to, we're going to be picking some classic blockbusters from the 80s and 90s. Sometimes, if we feel the film is big enough and we've got enough to say about it, that'll be the sole focus. Sometimes we'll group some films together. We'll give it our all. What we like about it, what works, what doesn't work. I will hope to try and give a little bit of insight in terms of the sort of the geekier details, the background.
I should actually point out, George has actually studied film.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot to mention that.
Yeah, George has got a degree in, what was it?
Film and media studies.
Yeah, so there is actually, at least one of us has some qualifications in the industry, which might explain why George is able to talk technically and use the type of industry terms that you would expect.
It's finally paying off after all these years.
Mum and Dad would be so proud.
So proud of me now.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess the objective of what we're doing is that whether this podcast is successful or not, it's not really important to us. Now that might change. We may become...
Though donations are welcome.
But I say we are close brothers. We don't see each other very much. The opportunity to get together and to reminisce about films we grew up on, to have some banter, and to get it recorded in a podcast that maybe one day, we're both dads now, maybe one day that we could share, just to have that record, that means a lot to us. And even if this only gets shared with our friends and close networks, great. But we hope that the tastes of people further afield can be met. So,
yeah. So I think that's it. We aim to entertain. We like talking about films. We like having fun talking about films, and we hope you have fun listening.
Souvenirs, novelties, party tricks.
So, George, what can people expect when they download an episode of Retro Ramble?
I think it's safe to say that it's not highbrow material.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
The films we're covering, aren't gonna, win any awards for subtlety. But they're enjoyable films. I think all the films we're going to be picking stand up to repeat viewings. They have created, they have that longevity. Some of them are still going, various franchises we're going to talk about. Some of them have spawned a lot of parodies, memes, or memes, as you Frenchies call them. And so, yeah, I think it's for people, PLUs, people like us.
Yeah.
So, it's there's going to be... we like to think we can be funny from time to time. There'll probably be...
People laugh at us.
People laugh with us or at us?
No, they laugh at us.
Okay. And so, yeah, I think we enjoy talking about films. We enjoy... These films are, we've seen them so many times, they're practically like a good friend. And, like all good friends, you want to take the piss out of them from time to time. Have some fun. So, yeah, it's, and, we live up to our name. The name isn't just, a bit of alliteration. We will ramble at times, but hopefully it'll be entertaining listening.
Music for the ears, indeed. So in terms of the types of films, give us a flavour, George. What sort of films are we going to be covering in these episodes?
Well, as I say, they're all going to be big blockbusters or there might be the occasional cult film from mainly the 80s and 90s. We started making a list and
we got a bit long.
We quickly realised there's a lot of stuff we would love to cover. So there may be some left field choices in there, but we've got films, from some of the big action hitters. So from Arnie, Stallone, Commando, Total Recall, Predator, Terminator 2 is one of my biggest, one of my favourite films, I should say.
So think of the cast of The Expendables before they got into Botox.
Yeah.
All of the sort of films they were making, the Wesley Snipes, the Dolph Lundgrens, the Harrison Fords, the classics. We might do a few Bond films. We're probably going to cover some of the great big films like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Maybe, if there's time.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one to choose because there's so much material out there. There's a lot of people talking about specialist subjects. I think you and I could comfortably we could do a separate Bond podcast, and we had a lot of fun listening to the James Bonding podcasts. And if you are a James Bond fan,
please check that out.
Check that out. We're big Star Wars fans as well. We love the comic book films. Yeah,
well, we used to until we got drowned in it, as we have done.
Yes,
getting a bit tired of comic book films, to be honest. Well, that's me.
That's true. And I think, we just, love, there's a few guilty pleasures in there. We love good comedies, but I think if we were to review comedies, it would just end up you and I just quoting lines at each other.
Which would drive people insane.
So, we're hoping to sort of give you a little different flavour. We'll try and link the films as tenuously as possible. We might do sort of features, whether it's on an actor or a director or a genre or sometimes even a year. I think, as you can quickly ascertain from all of that, we're sort of finding our feet. We're new to podcasting.
Yeah, we're shooting from the hip, but we're not. It's not just all about the podcast, is it, George? We have a blog, and George is writing. We're not just covering these films via podcast. George is also going to be writing reviews for each of the films we cover.
Yes, so with each film that we will cover on the podcast, there will be an in-depth review from myself using my film degree background. He says, stroking his beard. I don't have a beard. But
I don't know that.
So, there will be film reviews on the blog accompanying each film. So if you can't stand the sound of our voices or our shitty impressions, just read the reviews instead.
Or if the other commuters on the train, that you're making listen to this podcast with your speakers, just maybe switch to the blog.
Maybe switch to the blog for safety. So there will be... the reviews are a more in-depth and sometimes more academic look at the films. There'll be some more trivia on there. There'll also be some links to some of the stuff that Charlie and I will touch on. So whether there's a trailer, parody, a mashup video, a relevant article online. So there'll be more links on the blog. So please do check in on the blog.
Yeah, and in terms of how regular we will be both updating the blog with new articles and with new podcasts, we're going to aim to do this on a monthly basis. We're going to hopefully supplement that with some extras here and there. But you can expect at least one episode from us each month. That is our plan. That is our objective. But we both have full-time jobs, children.
Yeah, we have lives, and we have families, we have friends, we have jobs. We live in different cities, different countries. So yeah, there's a lot of balls up in the air, and we don't want those balls in our face. Really? I think I'm mixing my metaphors. Maybe I'm spinning plates.
Spinning plates.
So yeah, we are going to try at the very least to get a podcast out every month. However, we will try and get some more stuff on the blog for you to consume. So even if it's just sharing some wonderful stuff we've discovered on the web for you to consume, and we would also like you to encourage you to share with like-minded people. So if you enjoy what we're doing, spread the word, please.
Gambling is illegal at Bushwood, sir, and I never slice.
Yeah, and the blog kind of, or the website, what do you want? It encapsulates the point behind doing this podcast. As we said earlier, George and I live in different cities, different countries. Some of these, a word on editing, some of these podcasts, it will sound like one of us is on the phone, kind of, because they are. We will do our best to ensure the highest audio quality possible, or acceptable at least. But just like the phone calls that George and I used to have that inspired us to do this podcast, we will discuss many different things. So we will be focusing mainly on films, but there will be some diversions into games, into books, as George said, funny links, parody videos, and that is all brought together on the blog. So there's much more. There's obviously George's reviews are the actual academic, engaging content to consume, and the rest is just kind of waffle and
the protein, I would call my reviews.
Yeah, yours is the well structured stuff. The rest is just amusing stuff to get you through the day. So yeah, I guess that's everything. I mean, just in terms of the editing, bear with us. We are new to the game, but we do try our best.
Yeah, the structure may change, they may evolve, but we are human. We are not robots. So, as I say, we are open to feedback, but we're also open to suggestions. So, if there's something that you don't like, we'll
take it under advisement.
Yeah, we'll take some, make sure it's constructive criticism. We don't like meanies. But no, if you want, if you feel that you want us to talk about a particular topic, if you want our opinions on stuff, if there's something that we could do better, there's something that we're missing, let us know.
But we are just two brothers looking back at some of the films that we enjoyed growing up. And we're going to try and keep it current. We're going to try and keep it light. But we're also going to hopefully inspire you to go back and take another look at these films for yourself. So that's what you can expect to see from Retro Ramble. So stay tuned. We're at retroramble.blog.
We will also be on the other mediums. We are on Facebook,
Pinterest,
Twitter,
Instagram.
Coming soon.
Coming soon? What, you mean you haven't done it yet?
Maybe.
You haven't done it yet?
It's on my to-do pile.
You're fired. Okay. So, yeah, okay. Should we get in the bath?
Well, we need to take our clothes off first.
Okay, let's do that. Because there's nothing wrong with two, 30-year-old guys. We're brothers, right?
We're brothers. Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. Save the planet.
If you're sick.
Yes, you're sick.
I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you.